All right, gentlemen, it's 7:30. Call the meeting to order. I note that we've got a quorum. Mr. Perino, Mr. Diatley, Mr. Nemec, Mr. Harney are, okay, I'm sorry, we got a delay on the YouTube that's quoting back to me later. Anyway, I just noted that we do have a quorum available via teleconferencing to begin the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda for the evening is a Pledge of Allegiance. You can stand with us, or you can just remain seated. I suggest you stand. We'll repeat. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, roll call, please. Mr. Perino,
Here.
Mr. Datley,
Here.
Mr. Nemec,
Here.
Mr. Ziemba, Mr. Merkel, Mr. Harney.
Here.
Okay, we've got a quorum as noted. The meeting is called to order. Couple of items here. First off, gentlemen, this is a first for us, having the teleconferencing via video and audio. There are a few things you need to remember. This is one being recorded live. Anything you say and do at this point on camera will be preserved for posterity. So behave yourselves accordingly. Also, Mr. Mills sent out a few notes earlier about conduct on a video conferencing such as this. Remember that when we stop speaking, it takes a couple of seconds for everybody to notice it. So we'll have to probably, get used to pauses and some blank spaces as we move along. But we've got it set up. We're rolling. Now, the next item on the agenda is the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 16th, 2020?
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 16th, 2020. Are there any corrections? I see no hands waved or anyone speaking up. Therefore, I will take that there are no corrections to the minutes as published. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I've got 5 ayes. The minutes are approved. We move on to the president's report. As I noted earlier, we're having a first this evening by teleconferencing for this board meeting from Village Hall. At the hall this evening, Anthony Mills, the village clerk, and myself, along with the assistance of John Florence. Chief Rivas is in the building, but is currently conducting the meeting from his office. And the rest of you, I understand, are remote. Mr. Ziemba and Mr. Merkel are absent this evening. Before I move on, I would like to take a quick moment and have a hats off to John Florence for helping us out with this Zoom teleconferencing this evening. John stepped up and has been a big help the last 3 weeks. Fortunately, we had a 5 Monday month in March, so we had an extra week to get ready for this. But here we are moving forward into the 21st century. We are using the Zoom system, as you probably know by now. This is going live. It's being broadcast live on YouTube. I understand it's also accessible from Facebook. And we will have a recording of this meeting made available to us shortly after the conclusion of it. Any questions on the Zoom conferencing? Okay, the one item on that is I did purchase for the village a subscription package. It's about $150 for a year, and it allows us to have up to 100 participants on any given meeting. If we need to, we can always enlarge that, but the free one was only a 40-minute long version, and did not allow you to have but about 40 participants. I feel $150 is not that far out of the realm to allow us to continue the business of the village in this method. So going forward, it looks like we'll be using Zoom, folks. Reverb. Okay, we've got the next item will be the discussion of the emergency measures and the declaration of a local state of emergency available to the villages. You should have in your packets a summary from Mr. Schuster regarding the emergency measures, the declaration of a local state of emergency. At this point, as most of you know, the pandemic caught a lot of us totally unaware of what we were going to be encountering. Teleconferencing, of course, was one of those things. We've had it on the book to allow for teleconferencing. The last meeting on the 16th, I believe, was the first time we ever tried it with the phone connection with Mr. Nimick. Was not an ideal situation. The Zoom idea came forward, and that is the method that we have taken. But as I said, that's only part of the various things that have occurred during the pandemic. One of them, another one, for example, is the closing of the retail establishments within the village, and then the governor allowing certain restaurants and bars that had liquor license to also serve that off premise, although their original license did not include that. These are measures that we're coming across off and on throughout this. And one of the things we said we did notice beginning this situation some 3 weeks ago was the Village of Sleepy Hollow's lack of an emergency plan. Period. End of remarks, gentlemen. We had one in 1996. That was 24 years ago. So we really have no plan in place at this point. And one of those items that should be in the plan for such emergencies is an ordinance amending the village code to allow the declarations of a state of emergency and allow the village president to declare that state of emergency and to exercise certain powers. Mr. Schuster provided us with a discussion list earlier that should be in your packets. If you'd like to take a look, if you have any questions on those, he's online with us. Any questions concerning a emergency measure declaration of local state emergency available to the Village of Sleepy Hollow? I either presented that real well or I just lost audio.
No, it's,
Okay.
I will go ahead and make the motion that we approve ordinance 2020 dash, hold finger, Steve. Tony,
Mr. D5. Mr. Mills says it's 2020-5.
-5, amending the municipal code to authorize the village president to declare a local state of emergency and exercise certain emergency powers.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to pass ordinance 2020-5, an ordinance amending the village code to authorize the village president to declare a local state of emergency and to exercise certain emergency powers. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions, or discussion? One thing I will note, gentlemen, in the ordinance, it does ask for a couple of timelines. How long should this emergency power be enforced for, and how can it be discontinued or renewed?
Mr. President, Mark Schuster,
Yes.
I would suggest 21 days. That would be the longest time you would have between meetings. The ordinance also refers to that if the declaration would cease at the end of the next following meeting. So 21 days ought to cover it. Most of your meetings are 14 days apart, and occasionally, like this one, they're as much as 21 days apart.
The only question I'd have there, Mark, is if for some reason there was unable to get a quorum or get people together, we may need to, would it extend automatically or would it still expire? Should we double that? I mean, I assume when the board got together, it could cancel such declaration.
Well, the declaration could be renewed. A new declaration, just for example, the governor of the state of Illinois issued his executive order and then he had to extend it. So a second declaration could be declared by the village president in the event that no meeting intervened.
So we could just keep on doing it then every 21 days,
21
basically.
days.
Correct.
Yeah,
But at the same
paragraphs.
time, there's the opportunity for the village board to weigh in. If in fact it can convene a meeting, then it could give its opinion or amend the emergency powers so no more emergency could be declared if that was their intention. Or they could certainly convey their consensus to the village president that it ought to be extended or another declaration made to continue it in effect.
So you need an amendment, a motion to put a time limit of 21 days.
Yes, I'd make amendment to the motion to include the 21 days.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, moved and seconded to place the limit as a 21 days. Okay, is there any other comments or questions, discussion? If there are none, then on the amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I got 4 ayes that I hear. There might have been another one in there. The amendment to the motion carries. Therefore, on the main motion, ordinance 2020-5, an ordinance amending the village code to authorize the village president to declare a local state of emergency and to exercise certain emergency powers. Like a roll call on that, please.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Dentley,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Yes.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
You have 4 aye votes, Mr. President.
We've got 4 aye votes. Motion passes. Okay. I've got a couple of other items that we can pick up later. I got them underneath from there. Move on to the clerk's report.
I have no report, but I would encourage anyone on the board as well as anyone listening tonight to visit our local businesses. I've personally had an opportunity to go to Salsa Street. They are very accommodating. I know that Dunkin' Donuts is alive and well, as is Rosati. So please use our local businesses. They need the help as much as we need them. Other than that, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Planning and zoning, there is no report. Attorney's report, Mr. Schuster.
Yes, Mr. President, I have started to work on the 2020 update to the village's affordable housing plan. Just wanted to alert everyone, I was not able to confirm, and I do want to confirm with the Illinois Housing Agency what figures I was able to find. But the ones that I'm working with show that there's been an increase, probably for economic reasons, in the housing that's deemed affordable in the village. And the village is now remaining short by some 27 units. The rest of the plan we had prepared and included a mapping of the remaining vacant lots in the village. I'd like to work with Mr. Steele to update that. There certainly have been a few of those lots that have been built on since 2016, but we'll verify that and include that with the update. if that's okay. And let's say at the first meeting of May, I'll bring it back a final draft for board review and approval.
Okay.
Any questions about that?
Mark, just out of curiosity, do you think a decrease in home values has led to an increase in the affordable housing?
No, I didn't see that. The average value actually went up just a little bit. Let's see where I put that. The median, not medium, the MEDIAN, median home value in 2016 was deemed to be $283,300. It's now $289,800.
Okay.
I think what must have happened is income went up such that because they use a percentage of income to determine what's affordable. And it must be that median income has increased a little bit so that more units are deemed to be within that affordable range. But I haven't really run that to ground, and it's something I'd want to discuss with IDHA just to be sure that they believe that I'm using the correct numbers in compiling this update.
Yeah, because what were we originally, about 3%?
I couldn't hear that.
What were we originally, about 3%?
No, wasn't 3, up to 7.7. Oh, where's that number? You know, I don't have that number right in front of me. I know I saw it the other day.
No, that's all right. I know.
It was quite a bit lower before with a larger gap. So that I wouldn't quarrel with that. It probably was around 3%. But it's now Sleepy Hollow, out of 66 communities that are under 10%, Sleepy Hollow is in 61st place, which means it's only, that's good. The higher number, if you were 68, you'd be the closest. So that's not bad.
The figure, Mark, that you gave at 7.7%, it's listed under discussion, second paragraph. So that's correct.
That's the new number, yes.
Yes, the new number.
We were yes. The president was asking about the former number, the old number.
We seem to have increased our stock in affordable housing substantially since the last one, Dad, and I was just curious as to how that came about.
I'm not 100% sure of that yet, but I believe it's on the income side. Because the values didn't decrease, they went up just a little bit. So it must be that the income, which the median household income increased from 91,000 to 102,000.
Okay. Be interesting to figure out how that happened, but I'm happy being higher up than lower down.
Sure. Take some of the pressure off.
Yep. Okay, anything else, Mr. Schuster?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Engineers report, Jeff?
On the warrants, you'll see that the final payment for Schroeder Asphalt Services is on there. That finalizes out the project for the 2019 street program. They had finished the punch list items about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So basically that's on the warrants to be approved tonight. Basically that finalizes out the project now. Also, this afternoon, I received a text message from Barb Detmer. I guess Barb had received contact from a company that's looking to do fiber optic along Randall Road. They're requesting to submit electronic copies of the permit application and plans. Typically, the village requires hard copies. So we're just wondering, is it okay for them to submit electronic copies?
I would say in the current situation, it would be acceptable to take electronic copies.
Okay. I'll just have them
Good.
forward that to Tony.
Just if I could make a suggestion, Jeff, at the end, when they're approved, and maybe when the circumstances are a little improved, you could have them provide the village with the correct number of
Yeah.
hard copies for the files, because it's always otherwise going to be a problem to print out and obtain those hard copies. But that, that would be when they're finally approved and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly where the work is taking place, especially if it's along Randall Road, because that's Kane County, good majority of it as far as the right of way, but it might be in Sleepy Hollow right of way too, depending on where they're actually planning on putting that.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, with the current business situation, I don't think there's any problem with us accepting a digital copy at this point.
okay, sounds good.
All right. Anything else, Jeff?
Nope, that is it.
Okay. There is one thing I will bring up on your behalf. I know I saw a couple of emails on it late today. The letting for the road projects for the 2021 season will be next April 23rd, 2021. That they'll have the letting, and we'll see whether our application for Sleepy Hollow Road is, we think that application is going to be in there, right?
Yeah, is just to give you an update on that is I can't remember if at the last board meeting I had mentioned it in my review letter or update letter. The Kane Kendall County Council of Mayors approved our submittal for it. So now basically they go through all the applications. It appears that there were 47 applications for that. Just to give you an update on that is each year they have about $8 million to work with for projects over a 5-year period. The way that we're going is since we had actually already done phase 1 submittal, which is basically the preliminary application where IDOT approves the project, is it approved that already. So we're going to be one of the first ones in order to get in on the 2021 construction season, which is when that begins. So hopefully there won't be too many projects on that and we'll be able to get that on there.
Okay. Thinking a little bit more into this too, and this is more for the board than it is for Jeff. The way the current revenue situation is with the village, this is basically going to be a 75-25% program where we will get 75% of the fees, but we have to come up with the remaining 25%. When we were thinking about this a couple of years ago, $250,000 for a road program didn't seem to be all that out of reach for the village of Sleepy Hollow if we thought and planned about it. But looking at the situation going forward with our budget situation, we may have to take a look at this year's project and just do some bare minimums to save some funds to be available for 2021. So I'm just making that as a comment out now so everybody can remember it and think about it as we go forward. But if you recall, we were estimating roughly $1 million on this project. And the grant that we've applied for would provide 75%. So we're going to need $250,000 to finish our end of it. So we're going to have to start thinking long-term with the way the current financial situations are going. I'll have more comments on that through the evening. But other than that, anything else, Jeff?
Nope, that'd be it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Finance, Director of Finance, we've got the accounts payable for April 6, 2020. We have a motion to so approve.
I move that we approve the warrants of $117,515.78 for, what's the date here? April, for the April 6th warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the accounts payable for April 6, 2020 in the amount of $117,515.78. Any additions, deletions, comments, questions? There being none? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hardy,
Aye.
Mr. Prano,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Yes,
Okay, we've got a approval. The motion passes. Finance, Director of Finance. I'll take another couple of minutes and talk about that. I mentioned it just a minute ago with Jeff's report on Sleepy Hollow Road program. The budget is due to be set, well, actually our fiscal year is set for May 1. And the budget's supposed to be approved and in place at that point. The state statutes they'll give us until July. And at this point, it looks like we're probably going to be stretching our budget past the 1st of May right now. I've been working on it. The main drag right now is knowing what the revenues are going to be. Typically, the Illinois Municipal League sometime in January provides an estimate of the revenues based upon the revenues that the state will be taking in and the shares that will be returned to the municipalities. Historically, we've used those figures and I'd say they've been pretty much about 90% correct through the years. However, this year, we're not sure what those figures are going to be. And even the IML has said that they're going to try and revise those figures, taking the current situation into account. But at this point, as of today, they have not come up with any estimates on what the loss of revenue to municipalities is going to be. I don't know whether we take 30% off the top, we take 40% off the top. At this point, I have no clue as to where we're going to go. So I'm kind of putting the budget process on hold until we get some idea as from the IML as to what we could use as estimates for our ongoing revenues. But it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I can tell you that right up front. We're going to lose a lot of sales tax, which we never had a lot, but I mean, the 20, 30,000 we were expecting there is not going to materialize. The motor fuel tax, of course, with people reducing their driving, it's reducing the purchase of gas, going to reduce the amount of motor fuel tax funds available. The income tax being delayed 90 days is going to, while the income from 2019 won't be affected by the pandemic, the collection of those funds and the distributions of them is going to be affected. It's going to push our revenues stream from the state down at least 90, if not 120 days. We're probably going to be looking into going into our reserves rather sooner than later at this rate. But as I said, that's where we are now. If anybody's got any crystal ball as far as projections into the future as to our revenues, I'd appreciate you sharing them with me. Other than that, I will keep you appraised as to the budget and the finances of the village. Any questions on the budget or the finances at the moment?
I know that there was the question on whether we were going to hire a director of finance to replace Henry's position. Based on everything that you just said, President Pickett, is that something that we should not consider doing and continue to use the accounting folks?
Well, it's been a real question I've been thinking about, Anthony. One, nobody's applying to too many jobs right now. So I have not gone out searching for anybody at the moment. We're going to have to circle back around with the accounting service people and talk to them about continuing that type of service if we're going to do that and get something a little bit more permanent if we go that way. But yes, right now, everything's on the table.
Was there a savings in using them in this temporary period?
We were paying them what we would have paid Henry.
Oh, okay.
So that's all we were doing. We were using the budget that we had put aside for the payroll for the finance director, and we were using that to pay the temporary help from the accounting firm.
Okay.
So,
Steve,
yes.
is there any cheap money out there to borrow right now?
Any cheap money?
Well, I shouldn't say all money is cheap right now, but what's the process for us, putting a bond out or borrowing money?
Well, right now, of course, the care package was passed by Congress about 10 days ago. The majority of that is designated for businesses. I have not seen anything in the care package that was passed that would allow us to submit payroll as an expense on that at this point.
I mean,
So,
if we borrow money, what's the process for that? Can we borrow money or?
borrowing money at this point, Joe, I haven't even thought about it. I mean, I've got enough other situations at the moment. If we have to borrow, maybe that'll be a conversation we'll have in the future. But right now, I'm just, dealing with what cards we're seeing and what we've got on hand. There was one other thing I was going to mention. I can't remember on the finance. Well, Finance Committee was supposed to meet last week on the 24th, but of course, due to the the week before on the 24th, with the coronavirus, that meeting was canceled to be rescheduled. But we've got, we've got to have some long conversations as to what we do financially in the future here in our situation right now. But that's it for the moment. If you don't have any other comments for the finance, I'll move to comments from the public.
Just one last thing on finance, if I may.
Sure.
Is there a requirement that the village has a budget in place by a certain date? And due to the pandemic, has the state pushed that date back so that we're not in any jeopardy of not having a budget in place by a certain date?
Yes, Anthony, we're supposed to have a budget in place by May 1st, 2020. Our fiscal year is May 1 to April 30th. However, the state will give you until July of that same year, July 2020, to get a budget submitted to them. So we do have about approximately a 90-day window. The state has not said anything about extending that window at this point. They now have extended the submission of state income tax by some 90 days. We don't have to have that by April 15th, but they have not told us that we're not supposed to have our budget done by April 30th, or as I said, the 90-day window that they give on that end. They
Okay,
have not extended that.
thank you.
We'll still have to have something in place by July. Okay, no other questions, comments from the public. There is no public present this evening, and we have not received any contacts from the public for comments, either by email or hand delivery, anything. So,
Mr. President, I just want to point out, I hope you all looked at the second page of the agenda. There's some new information that's posted there given the circumstances. So people can submit public comment by email. They can log into this meeting and ask to speak to you directly. They can deliver other communications to the village clerk, all of which would be taken as public comment and read into the minutes. It's not maybe a surprise that no one's done that tonight, but if these circumstances continue, you will perhaps see some submittals like that, and they're put on the agenda as a means of notifying the public that in these circumstances, when public gatherings are prohibited and even for essential services limited to 10 people, they still have a means of making comment to you, the elected officials, and they should be encouraged to do so.
Okay, I know we put that notice out earlier with everything. So this is a work in progress, and we've got a lot of new things coming our way. So, but yes, we had 4 different ways of contacting us, I believe, for this evening. Thus far, we did not get any. So we'll move to the trustees' reports. Roads and Parks, Ed?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ed. Finance, Don is not with us. I filled you in on most of that. Water and Sewer, Joe?
Yes, the only thing I have is that Wendy was not able to provide the paperwork in time, but we had a resident on sewer that had an extremely high water bill. He contacted Wendy about 2 weeks after he got it. Kyle went out and did a log on it and found like an additional 30,000 gallons. He walked around the house and found the outdoor spigot was on full blast, probably running for 2 months. So he had about an $800 bill. In the past, what we've done in these situations is we billed the normal bill for the person. And then since we know the water was not going in the sewer, not charge them for the additional amount for the sewer, but for the water, and then for the water, just charged them not our markup from Elgin, but just our cost to Elgin on the additional water use. So for the next meeting, Wendy will have that paperwork for you, and we should be able to vote on it to officially waive that part of the bill.
Okay, thank you,
I
Joe.
believe it was over, Kyle said it was over an $800 bill, and he would have got another one about the same.
Okay, thank you,
That's all I
Joe.
have.
Police and Public Safety, Steve?
Just a reminder, since we do have not as many people driving around the village, but we do have a lot more walkers and families with small children on bikes. So just to remind everybody to be very careful out there and double check and take a second look anytime you go out and pull out of your driveway. So, but no report other than that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, speaking of pedestrians in the village, this might be a good time to teach them the roads of the rules. Walkers should walk facing the cars and not with the traffic.
Correct.
A learning moment brought to you by the Board of Trustees.
Walk on the left side.
How about bicycles?
Bicycles ride with the traffic. They do not go against the traffic. There's a reason for that, Anthony. You know what it is?
Well, I'm thinking because you're both moving at a higher rate of speed than Walker.
Well, likewise, but if you're on a bicycle and you get hit, you want to get hit by somebody going the same speed as you. You want to head on. Okay, thank you, Steve. Building and Environment, Mr. Merkel is not with us. Anybody have anything on that? Not Building and Zoning, Anthony?
Just I know that in the Mr. Schuster's billings, there was some conversation in billings regarding 101 Main Street and potentially an acronym APWC, which may have been interested. Is there any update from Steve, from them, anybody contacting us for that location?
It is APW, All Pets Wellness. They were in touch with me about 3 weeks ago. I had a brief conversation with them. They were looking at renting Maxway Motors building. They were in the process of doing that. We invited them to this meeting this evening to make a presentation to the board. And they have opted to pass on this one, but reserve the right to talk with us on the 20th of April, I believe is the next meeting. So we'll have some more update on that, anything from them at that point.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, okay, that's it for the trustees reports. Old business, any old business to come before the board? There's no old business, new business. Okay, new business. One of the things that is down here is the extension of the vehicle sticker and the pet tag payment deadlines. This is one of the things that falls under the earlier declaration of an emergency. I believe this came up the 17th or 18th, just as the pandemic situation was coming down about our heads and shoulders. If you recall, our vehicle sticker and pet tag deadline is April 30th of this year. The staff was being asked if we were going to extend that. I went ahead and made an executive decision in light of the state extending the income tax by 90 days and a few other things. I thought that we should go ahead and extend our sticker and tag payment for 60 days. So I went ahead and instructed the village staff to let residents know that because of the current situation, that we would be extending that deadline to the June 30th deadline date instead of the April 30th. And therefore, under new business, I would like the board's ratification of that action.
We need a motion to ratify, Mr. President.
Yes, please.
I move that we extend the vehicle sticker and pet tag payment deadline to June 30th, 2020 due to the current pandemic situation we're facing.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to extend the vehicle sticker and the pet tag deadline by 60 days due to the pandemic epidemic. Because this is going to affect the financial situation of the village. Roll call, please.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Pareno,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
4 affirmative votes.
Okay, the motion so passes. Thank you. The next item is a similar one. The water bill and the sewer bill 90-day cutoff period. That we should also take another look at and extend that one an additional 30 days along with the vehicle sticker and the pet tags. So I would like a motion to approve the extending of the 90-day cutoff period by an additional 60 days to those whom it affects.
I go ahead and move that we extend the water sewer cutoff until June 30th, as well as waiving late fees until June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded to also waive or to extend the 90-day cutoff period an additional 60 days and waive the late fees until June 30th, 2020. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Pareno,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Nimitz,
Yes.
So we've got 4 affirmatives. The motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we've got another ratification. Well, on top of all this, we've closed Village Hall to the public until the pandemic subsides. Therefore, I'd like authorization to close the Village Hall to the public until the pandemic emergency subsides.
I will go ahead and move that we close the village hall to the public until such time as the village board reopens it after the pandemic subsides.
Second.
Moved and seconded to ratify the closing of the village hall due to the pandemic. Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
Has anyone, has any of the administration been in the office since we closed it? And if so, have any residents been turned away, or has anybody really stopped
Well,
by?
Anthony, one of the benefits to having a small staff is that we have been able to keep Village Hall operating. With only 2 people in the office, they've been able to maintain social distancing, and they've been able to conduct our business internally. We have not allowed the public to enter the building, however. Okay, there have been a few people that have come to the door and have made some, rude gestures that we, wouldn't let them in. But I said, the fact that we're small, and we don't have a lot of people at any one time has been helpful. To being able to at least keep the mail and the phones and the FOIAs and the various paperwork that we need to do. We still get the Julies and whatnot that are coming through. So staff has been able to operate and maintain social distancing. Our big problem on this has probably been more with the police. If you recall, about a month ago, we hired a new police officer. The chief has not been able to schedule training with them because cannot put 2 officers at a time in a squad car. So we've got somebody sitting on the sidelines. We would really like to have the personnel for the manpower, but we just can't at this point. So that's where we are with the opening of the village hall. Did I have a roll call vote or not? I don't want a roll call vote. I just need a voice vote on this one, guys. On ratification of the closing, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. It so carries. Okay, one other item under new business. Earlier, we mentioned the emergency proclamations and whatnot. One of them that came down was the state saying that restaurants that had liquor license could also now serve off premises during the declared emergency, depending upon the declaration of the local liquor commissioner. I have since had an order published and presented to Salsa Street, allowing them to sell alcohol off premise during the pandemic. And I would like board ratification of that authorization if I could. Could I have a motion to authorize the order to allow Salsa Street to continue selling off-premise alcohol during the pandemic?
Yes.
I
I'd like
assume-
to make.
Go ahead.
Ed.
No, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow Salsa Street to continue to sell off-premises alcohol during the pandemic.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or
There we go.
comments?
I have a comment, Mr. President. Just to be clear, they can't sell the liquor off premises. They can sell it from their premises for consumption off the premises.
Okay.
All right, and they frankly should be selling it in the original container, sealed. I know in some other towns, they're allowing like cups of beer to be sold and delivered. The proclamation or the order that you entered as liquor commissioner, Mr. President, called for, would allow for sale for consumption off the premises, but only in the original container.
Okay.
So we'll see how, and Chief, I don't know, I hope there's been no bad experience over there since they've gained that authority.
Chief said 0.
Question, I know a lot of places I've been seeing on Facebook and that a lot of people are going out for margaritas and such as a mixed drink in a container. Would that be that much of an issue to do that if it's just one? to take it home? Because it seems like that would be a primary,
Well-
item selling there. I mean, I can go to Jewel and get a can of beer. If I'm gonna go and get tacos and a margarita, that, I'm not gonna buy a bottle of tequila and whatever else is in it. It seems like that would.
The problem is how do they transport it home? Because, there are other laws that prohibit open liquor in the passenger compartment of your vehicle. So
Put a carrier in the trunk.
if you're saying that the order might be changed, it would have to come with some pretty strong caution that upon delivery from Salsa Street, the purchaser needs to put that alcohol somewhere out of his immediate reach.
That seems reasonable. I mean, I think that's what other people are doing. I've seen, as I said, I've seen on Facebook where they literally go there and they put their, Mexican food and their margaritas or whatever, their mixed drinks in the trunk and a carrier, and away they go. I mean, it seems kind of reasonable at the time.
Well, I'm just cautioning that could be a problem. I haven't heard the chief say anything about it yet tonight, but that is the issue.
Mike, any issues with that?
If I could chime in, when you go to an expensive restaurant, and you don't finish that bottle of wine, they will seal it in a sealed bag and allow you to take it home. In some communities, I remember that was in Elmhurst, where I last saw that. So I don't know how we could effectuate that, but it is possible. But then, or maybe you have an agreement with whatever customer just to keep it maybe in the trunk or something like that.
I think in this time for something like that seems reasonable.
I have no clue how Salsa Street is serving their alcohol for
Premises consumption.
off premises consumption.
Well,
I could go ask Brenda at the establishment tomorrow.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, you would have to change your order a little bit if you think that would be a viable alternative. It certainly wouldn't hurt their business to be able to do that. And if that's one of your focuses, then so be it. We just want to make sure people are careful about what they do with that alcohol between Salsa Street and home.
Yep. I will talk with you tomorrow about modifying that order then, if that's the case. Okay. Okay, we voted on that. Any other new business?
I had something, it was more a question regarding the 2020 census. I know I received it at our house here, and it said 522 Stevens Court, Dundee, Illinois. And when you go in to process it online, it asked, is this the address? And I initially said no, and then it brought me to another screen. So I actually closed it, went back in, and then said yes, and proceeded to fill out the census. Some residents have contacted me to say, because we have a shared zip code, we often have this issue even in retail stores. What impact does it have if in my case, I filled it out as Dundee. Does Sleepy Hollow, do we lose anything by doing that if that's how it came to our residential house?
That is a question, Anthony. I noticed that also. And, I kind of take that personally. Sleepy Hollow is its own entity. However, I do understand the U.S. Postal Service uses 60118 for 3 municipalities plus unincorporated. They have a policy of a zip code for every 10,000 rooftops. We at one time did not have 10,000 rooftops in the Dundee Township, so we had the same zip. How the U.S. Census Bureau is going to break that out, I don't know. I think they might take it as far as the zip +4.
Okay.
And do that.
Mr. President.
It's something I've been, I made a note of it also to follow through to see if we got shorted anywhere. I do know years ago when cell phones became popular, we found out that Verizon was sending all our funds to East Dundee. Because East Dundee was the first municipality that shows up under 60118. They were getting all, the consumers from Sleepy Hollow and West Dundee and the check to East Dundee.
Hmm.
And we had to sit down and get that squared away. But I think the census is a little bit beyond that, I hope. But we'll see. If we drop drastically below 3,300, we got a problem.
Right.
Mr. President, the information that I discussed earlier about affordable housing comes from the Census Bureau and is segregated for the village of Sleepy Hollow. I'm not sure how they do that, but they
I'm not either.
publish information segregated to the village. So there must be some procedure that allows them to make that distinction.
Well, there's got to be, because I know sometime back, one of the things I received from the Census Bureau here at the village was a request that I verify our municipal map with the Census Bureau.
Right.
So yeah, they had us zoned out on a map with the lines drawn around our borders. So that's why, I'm like you, Anthony. I saw that Dundee, and my first impression was hit that, change it to Sleepy Hollow.
But you're right. It refers to the post office that delivers your mail, not to your municipality. And it doesn't say West Dundee or East Dundee. It says Dundee.
Right.
So somewhere farther down the line, they segregate the data.
Yeah, because it would also be the same if somebody lived in West Dundee or East Dundee. There's probably also just says the word Dundee.
Yep.
Right.
Or unincorporated.
Or unincorporated.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure thing. The only other thing I think, we've been monitoring this situation with the pandemic. The CARE Act that was passed will have some reimbursements in it. I know Mr. Schuster's been tracking his time. We will put that toward the coronavirus pandemic fund. The chief is also keeping an eye on expenses on his side. I don't know how much of this will be reimbursable. For example, the video conferencing equipment, we will put that on it also. We'll see what we can get in the reimbursement. That process has started. The IEMA, the Illinois Emergency Management Association or agency, is the one that will be leading on that. We will submit our application to them, and we will have to do so quickly. I noticed, Mark, that there's a comment that we've got 30 days from the time that the declaration is of emergency is declared to file for these funds. So, Chief, you may see that also on some of our stuff. So we need to get those applications in process here shortly. So, any other new business come before the board?
Yeah, I had one thing, and unfortunately I didn't think about this until after the agenda had gone out, so we probably can't take any action unless you are declaring an emergency. Several states and municipalities around the country have taken upon themselves to ban open burning for the duration of the pandemic because it is a respiratory illness and the effects, and they have found that it actually can help sometimes make the symptoms worse or otherwise, or even mimic the symptoms. So I don't know, Steve, if you're declaring an emergency, you might want to do that. I think Kyle still has the science, but we certainly want that on the agenda for next meeting to not necessarily ban fire pits, but ban the open burning we allow in the village till the pandemic subsides.
Put that on the agenda for the April 20th meeting. Yeah. No problem.
Anybody have any objections to that, or?
No.
That's,
Would you want the president to declare that now? Is that what you're suggesting, Mr. Nemec?
Well, we're right in the height of it, and next weekend is a burning weekend, so I would suggest the president do that, and we ratify it by the board at the next meeting. I believe Kyle still has the signs from the last time you did it, Steve, when we were in the, when you banned burning due to the dry conditions a few years ago.
Okay,
We can talk about that tomorrow, Mr. President.
yes.
Does anybody have any objections to that or have any problems with that?
I don't have an objection to putting it in there. If it comes to a vote or discussion, I may have a difference of opinion.
Okay, it's just science, so I'm just going on with the science and the recommendations, so
Okay.
I'm,
Oh, you
I,
have to-
Right, I mean, it would only be a short-term thing anyway. Right? I mean, at some point, we're hoping this clears up enough that things can return to normal.
And I understand that, and we had a small fire in the little fire pit on Saturday, and it was kind of a nice way to do something a little different and clean up the yard.
Well,
I-
Anthony,
Well, you
Joe's
can
comment
always-
was open burning, not pit. burning.
yeah.
I understand that, but to what's the degree then of open burning? I mean, we burned for probably 4 hours,
Well, open
twigs.
burn would be yard waste or field burning that we've done earlier in the spring,
Leaves,
Yeah,
leaves.
well,
You can't burn leaves.
Not supposed to, but you can burn yard waste,
yeah, and people do.
and they have been.
yeah, well, I'll admit that I did, and I think that's where you just have, if we know all the houses that are here and those people who might want to do it just because, then we also have to lean on the police force to enforce that as a violation during those weekend days that those visible smoke plumes are seen. So, we're putting extra pressure then on the police department to enforce that. So there's a lot of those things that come into play. We can't expect people to just say, oh yeah, I understand because of the pandemic. People are thinking, let me do something different because I'm tired of being inside my house. I'm just throwing it out there. That's all.
Okay. Joe, you got your hand up. Is there any particular?
Well, that was earlier that was like from 20 minutes ago, Steve.
You saying I need to see the optometrist?
I think so.
Okay, any other new business come before the board? This is the point where somebody makes a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting is concluded. We will see you all again April 20th, one way or the other.
Good job, guys.
All right,
Yep.
Night.
nicely done.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again to John Florence.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you, John.